Now, it has the potential to do a lot of good, but despite that, the uproar over Flock's AI-powered license plate reader cameras has been quite swift. Everyone has an opinion. People are actually taking to the streets and destroying them. Flock cameras have been shot at, spray painted, cut down, and how-to videos for how to get rid of them are spreading online. But why are people so upset? Now, over the past few months, we've seen cases of Flock cameras appearing to make mistakes. And we've seen at least 3 alleged cases of police officers improperly accessing the Flock system. On Capitol Hill, there is bipartisan effort to either ban the cameras outright, that's a Bernie Sanders proposal, or to stop federal funds from being used to install them. Now, Tim Burchett has told us about that on this program. But what about the good? What have these cameras done to help us? Flock CEO has said that over 1 million crimes were solved as a result of the technology, with another 10,000 missing people detected. 10,000. Now, that's huge. And Flock's founder are also confident in their cameras that they could be used to solve cases like the Nancy Guthrie disappearance. And in Georgia, Flock cameras are credited for helping police track down the suspects in a $200,000 auto parts heist. Now, the CEO of Flock Safety, Garrett Langley, joins me now. Garrett, I was very excited to speak with you because there's a lot of discussion about Flock online and elsewhere. I was struck by the fact that 10,000 people who have been missing have been found. As a mother, it is my worst fear, and I would hope that a Flock camera was there if I was a victim of this. But tell me some of these stories of these 10,000.
Yeah, I mean, I can remember so vividly 5, 6 years ago, our first ever missing child case. And there was a 911 call in Chamblee, Georgia. And a mother was walking her 5-year-old son on the street. A car pulls up, a man jumps out, rips the child from the stroller, and drives off.
Wow.
It's a mother's worst nightmare. And she was targeted. This is a Hispanic woman who was targeted because they believed she wouldn't call 911, but she did. Now, she recalled the license plate, provided that to law enforcement. They then plugged that into the Flock system. We detected the vehicle leaving the city, getting on the highway. Georgia State Patrol was able to determine that individual's residence. They were silently waiting as they pulled into the house, and within under an hour, that child was returned safely. And that's one story. This exact same thing happened 2 weeks ago in Atlanta, where there was a carjacking. There's a 2-year-old in the back seat. But with Flock's help and obviously the incredible work of the Atlanta Police Department, that child was returned safely to his mother in less than 30 minutes. And so, look, as a parent as well, it's my worst nightmare. And every day across the country, whether it's through Amber Alerts, through local law enforcement, and whether it's silver alerts or amber alerts, like this is an important problem that we have to address.
Garrett, you're convinced that Flock cameras could have helped solve the Nancy Guthrie case. How would that have worked?
Yeah, I mean, look, sadly, whether it's the assassination attempts against our president or it's the Brown shooter, in these national stories where crimes cover states, when crimes are happening in the middle of the night, it's always with a vehicle. The majority of crimes in America are committed with a vehicle. And so, while we would have loved to have been in that county, in that situation, the sheer detection of a vehicle often is the beginning of an investigation. It's very rarely the end-all be-all, but more often than not, a license plate, a vehicle can be that first piece of evidence to start to lead into a larger investigation.
So people do have privacy concerns, and that's why we've seen Bernie Sanders, who wants to ban these cameras. Burchett wants to ban federal funding to fund these cameras in local jurisdictions. What's your reaction to the privacy concerns that many Americans have?
Yeah, look, I think these are important conversations to have. I value my privacy. My family values their privacy. My employees value their privacy. But what we're talking about is safety as well. And so I think when people talk about just one of these, privacy or safety, they're prioritizing the wrong thing. And what we have to prioritize as a country is compromise. How do we have our safety, and how do we balance privacy? And so when I think about legislation that calls for an outright ban, that's like banning vehicles. That would never have made sense. Instead, what we did is we introduced laws against drunk driving. We introduced laws around seatbelts, laws around airbags. And when I look at this type of technology, there's 2 key things we have to get right. We have to get data retention right. So how long is this data stored? Now, we most recently updated our recommendation to 7 days. The most strict state regulation to date is 21 days. The second thing we have to get right is accountability. What happens if law enforcement abuses this powerful technology? Today, it is too often that in Flock and in other technologies, there's no regulation, there's no accountability, and we think that's wrong. And so last week, we announced changes that required auditing that required using our audit assistance tool, which detects abnormal behavior. And we're calling on state regulators to focus less on banning this type of technology and more holding our law enforcement community accountable. Because look, the person who wants a bad cop gone first is a good cop. And 99.9% of cops are good, and they need and want this technology to be more effective.
Garrett, final question for you. I just have a few moments, but there was a Wired report about a new powerful AI tool that partnered with Flock that police were using. It would allow them basically to have prompts to not just read a license plate, let's say, but get identities of people who are driving those cars. Your reaction to that report?
Yeah, look, I mean, we are a technology company, and when you think about AI, it is an incredibly powerful, but also a very dangerous tool. And you have to think about this kind of technology very responsibly. So for us, we're not recklessly moving into the AI wave. For us, it requires more third-party attestation, more support from the community. And if I think about the comparison to the business world, you might call Delta and have a challenge with an AI agent while you're booking a flight. Not that big of a deal. When you call 911, it has to work. There's no space for hallucination. So as we think about introducing AI in public safety, it's critical that we do it as responsible as possible with community support and third parties that can attest to it's safe, it's got guardrails, and it's going to be effective for the community.
Well, I know those 10,000 rescued missing persons are very thankful that your technology was there to assist. Garrett Langley, thank you.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.